Guys, Attack on Titan already ended, but it was quite literally the series of the decade. I couldn't help but savor every last bit of the story and going through the episodes again. Yeah, everyone loves talking about Eren or fan favorite Levi, but what about Mikasa? She had to see her childhood friends and the love of her life go from a silly hot-headed kid to this manipulative, genocidal villain. This video is about putting the focus on her and just how tragic Isayama made her fade out to be. Yep, these are the 10 saddest Mikasa facts that'll make you cry. Starting with the first one, we have to admit that Mikasa has practically diabolical levels of mental strength and resilience. Think about it. How many characters have had a life as tragic as her and still managed to remain selfless till the end? She lost her biological, and then the classmates she trusted turned out to be traitors. And even if we don't count the fight with Levi over who gets the culminants of these two together, we just love seeing this duo on the screen. She was always surrounded by the boys Eren and Armin growing up. But it's impossible to deny the simple fact that Sasha was Mikasa's first and best female friend, people she loves the most. I wonder if she would have even been able to summon the will to kill Eren if Armin had died during the battle to do the right thing by stopping the person she loved the most. Her tragic life is marked by the loss of pretty much her side. Moving on to the second fact, we have that legendary kiss scene from the ending. Now, we know that Mikasa severed Eren's head before kissing him, but did you know that a severed head can still be conscious for up to 15 seconds? You gotta love the brilliance of the scene. This means that even though it was at the very end, they were finally able to share an intimate moment together. And if we use the third fact to add on to this, let me remind you that she was able to see the look of sentiment in Eren's eyes before that kiss. This is important, because whenever we saw his eyes during the rumbling, they were always shut. But then at the very end, just as she kills him, Eren opens his eyes, and with that, Mikasa forever remains the last thing Eren saw before he died. It was the only time he opened his eyes, and it was for her. As for Mikasa, well, this is gonna sound corny, but in that fleeting moment, a lifetime of unspoken words and emotions must have passed between them. Just wait till she remembers what happens in the paths after this. Oof. Next, at fact number 4, let's talk about the fact that when the two of them were living out their days in the alternate reality, the time they spent together was 4 years. It was the 4 years that Eren had left before he was going to die the normal way. Of course, there are plenty of speculations and headcanons regarding how this was a gift to them from Ymir, but the way it was presented makes it obvious that no, it was all Eren. He genuinely wanted to run away with Mikasa. Even if it was fake, he wanted the last 4 years of his life to be with her. What's even sadder is we literally never hear them confess their love to each other. It all happened in some alternate reality, but never in words, out loud to each other here. Next up, we have what Eren referred to Mikasa as at the table. You see, all these realizations about the ending makes the scene where he verbally abuses her all the more tragic. When Eren called Mikasa a slave, it was as edgy as it gets, but think about it from her perspective and how hard it must have been. It's insane just how much the author has thrown at our girl. Yeah, it was about Eren and everything, but it was also about Mikasa protecting her own sanity, and to make it worse, Eren's logic was oddly convincing. When he called her a slave, he also tried to gaslight her into believing that her affection for him and her desire to protect him is because of her Ackerman instincts. He literally made her question life. He explained that when she awakened, she mistakenly thought that Eren was the host she needed to protect. This is the reason why that scene hurts so much. Eren tells her that he hates her, and then manages to give an honestly rather convincing explanation as to why he hates her. It's like the big old question. The worst he can say is no, right? Moving on. It's also rather ironic that Mikasa is the one who both literally and metaphorically frees the most enslaved person in the entire story. In its own twisted way, Mikasa's relationship with Eren parallels that of Ymir and King Fritz. Both of them literally cannot keep themselves from supporting and protecting the person they love, even when all logic points to the opposite. Ymir's entire backstory just adds that much more depth to the series. The author has fans screaming at the pages. Why is she with him? Why does she love King Fritz even throughout all the mind-bending abuse? It just made her ending that much more painful to read and watch. Of course, we can't equate Ymir and King Fritz with Mikasa and Eren because one of those is actually mutual and also considerably healthier. But it's also true that when Mikasa goes against Eren and kills him, she's in turn freeing Ymir by helping her break free from being the Eldian king's slave. To add on to this, Eren himself also left the final choice to Mikasa. She and Armin had the choice to choose the fate of everything because in the paths, Eren gave them that agency. He knew he didn't know enough of what he was doing, and so he left it to them. It's also quite poetic how while both Zeke and Eren were killed by Ackermans, the context is completely different in both cases. One with the deepest love, and one with pure hate. Moving on to the 8th fact, I have some explanation on the last few scenes of Attack on Titan. When Mikasa visits Eren's grave, she leaves 4 white roses. Now, let me tell you what these flowers mean. In Japanese culture, white roses stand as symbols of devotion and purity. And in this context, the white roses mean that nothing shall come between two people who love each other but cannot be together. Guys, there's no other way to understand that scene. Mikasa leaving white roses on Eren's grave is her telling her beloved that nothing shall come between the two of them, even in death. In simpler terms, this scene was intended to represent a pure, tragic, and yet everlasting love. No wonder Niccolo also placed a bouquet of white roses on Sasha's grave. And guys, this next one is where it gets even more sentimental. When Mikasa dies, a white rose is placed on her grave. This puts all those headcanons and speculations about her marrying Jean to rest. She's still wearing Eren's scarf, and the white rose once again declares that nothing can set them apart. Finally, there's that scene from Mikasa's childhood where she promises her mother that when she has children, she pass down the Asomabito clan's mark to her children. Until then, she promised to cover it up. By the way, back in Season 4, Historia made Mikasa blush by asking her why she only showed what's under her bandage to Eren, pointing out the fact that she never shows that mark willingly to anyone but Eren. That just goes to show how special and devoted she was to her one and only. And, well, she was still covering that mark even at the point of her death. Again, this isn't just about being unable to move on. It's about understanding that Mikasa's love for Eren was, in fact, eternal. Now, I wonder what happened to the Azumabito bloodline. The nation of Hizuru got wrecked by the rumbling. And although we know that Kiyomi was still alive at the end, she doesn't strike you as the kind of person who would suddenly start a family in old age. And that reminds me, what happened to the Ackerman bloodline? Did Levi have some children or what? Ultimately, it doesn't matter in the overall context, because the power of Titans itself